This is Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Nun Hey, and we pick it up from Nun Dalet Amid Beis. We're about we are about 10 lines from the bottom. The first one in line is Ulcer Mimnei Shehu Pri. But just to remind us, we scroll a little bit up on the top of Nun Dalet Amid Beis, and we have been discussing the Stam Mishnayis, in which the Gemara said, Halacha Kiramir by Meiser, Hoyel v'saslan tanikavasei, and Halacha Kirav Yehuda behektish, Hoyel v'saslan tanikavasei. Rav Yehuda behektish was that b'shoygeg it's mischalel, but b'mezid einoi mischalel. Says the Gemara, now we're 10 lines to the bottom. The first one line is Aser b'nei shehu pri. Says the Gemara, Tashema, Mashach Heimenu. Asks the Gemara, Kasha on Rav Yehuda, if someone is buying his friend's Meiser Shein and he's Mashach, he does a Meshicha, he pulls Meiser Be-Selah, for a Selah, worth a Selah. And he did not get a chance to redeem it. And now the Meiser is no longer worth one Selah, it's worth 2 Slayim. What's the halacha? Noisein Selah umishtaker Selah. All he has to pay is the Selah, and he gains the other Selah that is now worth more. Umaiser Sheni Shalai. So who is this Braisa? Mani. Ilemer Rameir. Amai mishtaker b'Selah. According to Rameir, why would the purchaser gain? It says in the Torah of V'nasan es hakesef v'kam loy. Says the Torah, and you gives the kesef, he gives the money, and it is his amarach mana. And therefore, according to Rameir, until the money is given, and in this case, the money was not given, so he will not gain. Elalav Rav Yehuda he must be Rav Yehuda, and therefore, says the Gemara, this proves that the underlining yesod in Shitas Rav Yehuda is that Meiser Sheni is not considered Mammon Gavaya. It's considered private property, and that's the reason why it could be purchased with a mere Meshicha. Says the Gemara, no. La'ilam Rav Yehuda v'hacha chad stama v'hacha trei stami. Really, says the Gemara, it goes to the Rav Yehuda. But if it goes to the Rav Yehuda, so why are we saying that when it comes to Hektish, why in the top of the Gemara, when it comes to Meiser, do you say Halacha Kirameir if we have a Braisa, a Mishnah, like Rav Yehuda? Explains the Gemara, because we have 2 stams like Rameir, which was the whole Lamed Beis that we learned yesterday, and one like Rav Yehuda. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? V'istama davka, what's the whole Yisai? This is a beautiful Marmakai. We have all over Shas. Stam and Mishnayis prove that we go with such a Shita. Because Stam Mishnayis means that when Rav Yehuda and I'll see that when Rebbe put together the Mishnayis, he wrote a Mishnah according to certain opinions, Stam. So we pass it that way. Says the Gemara, why is that? And the Gemara explains, if it's Dafka, if the reason that Rav Yehuda Nasi, that when Rebbe incorporated Mishnayis, he listed it Stam, and therefore it's a rayo, we paskin that way. So who cares? Mali chad stama, mali trei stami. There's no advantage of 2 versus 1. Meaning, in a very theoretical world, it always sounds, 2 is better than 1. It says the Gemara, I don't understand. If the whole yesod of stama is that it's davka, it was taught that way to teach that's the halacha, what's the difference? You have 1, you have 2, it's irrelevant. Lamaisa, Rav Yehuda Nasi, Rebbe one time wrote Stam like Rav Yehuda. Explains the Gemara, 2 lines to the bottom, the Dalam Abayz, Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Halacha Kirameir. Why? Hayal Utanan Bebechirasa Kavosei. Because in the Bechir, in the choice Mesechta, we have a raya like Rebbe Meir. What is it mean Bechirusa? So if you look at the bottom line in Rashi explains another big yesod in Shas that Mesechus Idias is called Bechirusa. She called Divreim Idub Bnei Gedolim V'Halacha K'Maisan. So we have a regular Stam Mishnah, and then we have a Stam Mishnah Mesechus Idias. A Stam Mishnah Mesechus Idias proves the Gemara More particularly, he proves Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak that is how we paskin. So therefore, since the Stam Mishnah like Rav Meir is an idiot, that's why we paskin like him. Says the Gemara, as we turn over to the Nehemiah and Aleph, a bit of a new discussion. Tenan Hasam, a machlokes Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda with regard to hektish. Behema shenimsa meYerushalayim lemigdal eder. If an animal is found between Yerushalayim and Migdal Eder, u'kamidasa l'chol ruach, and the distance from Yerushalayim to Migdal Eder, around the whole Yerushalayim, the same distance. What is this animal? We found a random animal. The animal looks like it's kosher for a carbon, but we don't know what to do with it. So Zacharim, if it's a male, what do you do with it? Oilais. We bring it as an oilam. Nikevais zivchei shlamim. Says the Gemara, alas charim oilais hu dahave zavchi shlamim loihavi. So maybe for some of us, myself included, that we don't really know the different particulars in kachim, we don't understand the kasha. But now the Gemara articulates, I don't understand. Are all zacharim and oila? What do you mean? A zachar, a male animal, could also be a shlamim as well. Amar Rav Aishia. Explains Rav Aishia. 5 lines down says the Gemara, you know the Mishnah is dealing with one who comes and he says, I want to give the value of that animal that I found. So what does he do? Vachi kamar. Chayshinan shema oilis. We're chayshish that it might be an oila, and therefore, what does it mean that it might be an oila? Meaning lechomra might be oila, which means that when there is an zachar, it has to be redeemed not only by bringing an oila, but by also bringing a shlamim. You have to bring both, and this is Rabbi Meir. He the Amar hektish b'mezin mischalel. That hektish purposely is mischalel. So let's take a moment and let's look at Rashi. Rashi says 4 lines into the narrow lines, what does this mean? The animal, of course you don't bring it. Someone wants to fix it. We see an animal, we don't know whether it was a carbon, and he wants to rectify someone's mistake. What does he do? Called damel shu besafek. We're not sure. Uloitzia lechulin ulahektish as damel. So im zacharu nischayv af b'demei oil, as we just explained. Why? Because chashina shema oilosim. V'rameiri damar explains Rameir in the Mishnah. That's our Mishnah going back to the base. Hektish b'mezid mischalav yachal zel loitzian lechulin mezid. You're allowed to b'mezid bring it lechulin. V'yitzusu adam b'kdushas. V'alidei tenai yavi shnei dam. So this is what you're going to do. Echad la'ayla v'echad l'shlamim. You're going to bring 2 times the value, one for an ayla, one for shlamim. You're going to say, we're in Rashi still, if it's an ayla, it's mischalel salzeh. And the other one is a shalmei nidava, which is anytime you're not sure, you always could potentially bring in a darva, a voluntary carbon. V'im shlamimi, harei muchlez al shal shlamim, v'ashein l'din das ayla. So that is Shitas Rebbe Meir. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Kedushas Hagof, Mimis Chalel. Is Kedushas Hagof. Kedushas Hagof means, as Rashi says, something that belongs to the Mizbeach, the body of the animal itself, because it has no mum. Are you able to deconsecrate it onto money? V'hatanan. But we learned in a Mishnah. V'hatanan. And the side they say, Vatanan Mishnah Mi'ila. Ein Mayel Achar Mayel B'Muktashin. There's no concept of Mi'ila once Mi'ila has been done, because the first Mi'ila already worked. Ela B'Behema U'B'Kli Sharis Bilvad. By Behema and Kli Sharis. Kli Sharis meaning items of the Beis HaMikdash. Then there is Me'ilah after Me'ilah. Now what exactly does this mean? Explains the Gemara 10 lines down. First word line is Ketzad. Ketzad. If someone's running an animal, everyone comes and rides on the same animal, and the animal belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. Kulam ma'alu. They're all over a me'ilah. They all utilize something that had kedusha for a mundane purpose. They're all drinking from a golden cup, and that's a cup of hektish. Kulam ma'alu. They're all over in me'ilah. So says the Gemara. So why are we saying, what does it mean that they're all over me'ilah means? Usually the way the me'ilah works, and this is the whole yesod of being mischalel something, that when you misuse, when you abuse something belonging to the Beis HaMikdash, of course it's aser, but then the item is mischalel, the item becomes deconsecrated, it loses its status of kedusha. But says the Gemara, what we're seeing over here is something with kedusha as hagof, inherent kedusha in itself is not mischalel. As we see clearly, if two people ride the same animal 1 minute after the first guy rode it, why don't we say the animal's no longer kadosh? Clearly it is. So says the Gemara, if there's kedusha zagof, how can you tell me that it's going to be mischalel? How can you tell me it's going to be deconsecrated? Answers the Gemara, you're right. That's Rav Meir, and I hear Rav Yehudi. Asks the Gemara, Rav Meir mid Rav Yehuda nishma. What do you mean? But Rav Meir learned his din from Rav Yehuda lav. The Rav Meir lav Amar Rav Yehuda hektish b'shagim mischalel kedusha zagof loy mischalel. Or the Rav Meir nami aval gav the hektish b'meizim mischalel kedusha zagof loy mischalel. So says the Gemara, it's true that Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda disagree, but they don't disagree with regard to this nuance, whether kedusha zagof could be mischalel or not. Explains the Gemara, Hasam loka b'chavein lavkinu l'chulin. It's all about kavanu, explains the Gemara, 10 lines to the bottom. First line is a chulin. Over there, you never had intent to take it out of its status of kedusha, and therefore it remains kadosh the animal and the koshel zaf. But hacha kamechayim lavkinu l'chulin, and that's the reason why Elamaisa does, and that's why it could be transferred from the behema and brought as a carbon in its place of oila and a shlamim. But says the Gemara, 1 second, you're not done yet. Aim the Sham said the Rameir b'kotshei kodshim, b'kotshei kalim misham islay. When did Rameir say this din? Only by kotshei kodshim, but not by kotshei kalim. And an animal that is lost, if we're saying it might be a shlamim, that means it's kotshei kalim, a lower level, and therefore seemingly how do you have a right that according to Rabbi Meir, you could be mischalel, you could deconsecrate it? Answers the Gemara, Amar lei, haho me Rabbanon v'Rav Yaakov Shemei. There was one of the Rabbanon, and his name was Rav Yaakov, said as follows, Kal v'chaymer, kotshei mischalim, kotshei kalim, like all shkein. Says Gemara, what do you mean? What was your whole kasha? If kotshei kodshim could be mischalel, something on a higher level of kedusha could be deconsecrated through mindful and intentional usage, kotshei kalim will be the same. Itmar nami, says the Gemara, 5 lines to the bottom, Amar Rav Chama b'Rav Akiva, Amar Rav Yosi b'Rav Chanina, Oyma Oyer Rameir, Hektish b'meizim mischalel b'shegim mischalel, Echad kotshei kodshim, ve'echad kotshei kalim, Kal v'chaymer. Kotshei kodshim mischalim, kotshei kalim lo kol shekain. Says the Gemara in explicit brisa, proving the teretz that we just gave, and therefore once we know it's going to work by kotshei kalim, it will work by kotshei kodshim as well. And therefore this lost animal, if someone wants to be a good Samaritan, someone wants to replace its value, he will be able to bring it as both an oila and a shlamim within the shita of Rabbi Meir. Continues the Gemara, still asking on Rav Oishia, this case of this behema that's found between Yerushalayim and Migdal Eder. Tahi ba Rav Yechon. Rav Yechon wondered, and Rashi fills us in like we just said. He's wondering on this of Rav Oishia, on the top line of Nonheim and Beis. Chayimrim loyla adam, amod v'chatei b'shvil shetiska. And this is a kasha that probably was bothering many who were thinking. A little bit of a basic question on everything we've been saying today. It's an aveiro to do this. It's an aveiro to take an animal and be mischalel it. As Rashi, 2 lines down from the top says, you're not allowed to do this. It's kineged the pasik. So I don't understand. You want to be a good Samaritan. You're helping your friend out, but you're messing yourself up. Elam Rav Yochanan says they can't be pshat in that Mishnah of the wayward and the lost animal. Elam Rav Yochanan mantin la shetumam umesi shtei beheinois umastan you make it tenai. That's what we're going to do in that Mishnah. Meaning, if the animal is tam, if the animal is complete, of course, we're never going to tell you that's when there's an isser to machalel a tamim, be machalel to deconsecrate an animal which can be brought as a carbon. Now it's true, we don't know what to do with this animal. Okay, so the way to be the good Samaritan is to wait for that animal to get a blemish, to get a bumam, and then you could go and bring the two values for the Eilah and the Shlamim. Amar Mar, 4 lines down, and Ham and the base continues the Gemara Zacharim Eilais, still discussing the same Mishnah. The males are an Eilah. Ask the Gemara, Dalma Taida Niuhi. Maybe it's a Taida, carbon Taida. Says, well, you're right, the Maisinami Taida. Vabai Lechem. You need to bring bread. The Maisinami Lechem. So if you're listening, we started off, someone finds an animal, and the animal, he wants to say, Oy vey, this animal might be a carbon, it's between you, it's by the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, I'm going to redeem it. So at first it sounds like, oh, it's a male, no big deal, just bring an Eilah. Okay, beautiful. Now we're learning they have to mischalal it and bring the value of an Eilah and the Shlamim. And now we're saying not only that, you have to wait for it to get a mum. And not only that, you have to bring the breads like a carbon, or you have to bring before the carbon taida. The Gemara goes further. V'delma ashamu, maybe it's carbon asham. Says the Gemara, asham and shtayim shanim. Asham has to be a 2-year-old animal. V'shtakach, and that what she found was ben shana, a 1-year-old animal. Says the Gemara, 1 second, v'delma asham mitzayir. And again, all these questions again are predicated on a basic understanding. Beis HaMikdash had animals all over the place. Karbanos stay in night. So if you find an animal within this proximity around Yerushalayim, you assume it's a carbon. And we're now trying to figure out what carbon was it. So says the Gemara, maybe it was an Asham Mitzayra, who? Asham Nazir, who? Or an Asham Nazir. Explains the Gemara, no, lo ishchicha. It's not common to bring those karbanos. So we don't assume that's what it was. Well, Delman Pesach, who? Maybe it's Carbon Pesach. Says the Gemara, Pesach Mizmanoi, Mizar Zihiri Bey. Carbon Pesach, when you're supposed to bring, you're very careful. The Tefillah Shloim is what? The Carbon Pesach Shloim is a Shlomim, like we spoke about. Maybe it's a Bachar or a Meiser. Says the Gemara, what's the difference? When it has a mum. Haninami b'muman misachli. In this animal, either way, like we already explained, you're only going to be getting involved with it once it has a mum. So it's a lecha, it's the lechem of a carbon taida, and you're eating it with a Baal Mum, when it's a Baal Mum, and everything is good. We continue quoting the next half of that Mishnah. Amar Mar, 10 lines to the bottom, first one line is Nekevois. Nekevois Zivchei Shlamim. Says the Gemara, Dama Taidi. Says the Gemara, you're right, there might see Taida. I Vabina Lechem, there might see Lechem. But Dama Chatasi, Chatas Bashanasa is 1-year-old, Vitachas Bashnei Shanim. But Dama Chatas, Shavar Shanasa. Maybe it's a Chatas that the year passed. Lo Shchicha. Ishtakach Bashanasa Mahi. Says, okay, but what if you did indeed find the 1-year-old, and therefore it should be a chatas? What do you do now? You can actually bring it as a chatas. It says the Gemara, really? You're going to bring it as a chatas? What's the kasha? The kasha is a chatas is brought for a specific aveira. So how you bringing a chatas for someone else? We don't know what the bailam is. We don't know what the aveira is. What exactly is going on over here? Elamar Abaye means kechatos, like a chatos. Konsal chipa, you bring it into the corral, you bring it into the cell, the mesa meila, and you wait for it to die in its own, like you would to do with the carbon chatas. If you don't know the bailam, you don't know what to do with it. And that's if it's a nekeva. And we'll pick it up from here in the next year. B'siyata dishmaya.